Westworld Season 3 Episode 6 Decoherence puts a primary focus on Charlotte Hale, Maeve and the Man in Black, aligning the oppositions of power, along with showing the personal complications that make the line between light and dark even wider. In this episode we get the return of Maeve, who comes face to face with Dolores, all while beginning to assemble her own army after emerging from the Warworld simulation. The Man in Black is also seen battling his own simulation, but with various iterations of himself. And Charlotte or Dolores is struggling to separate a growing sympathy for Hale's real family as Serac makes his final move on Delos. I'm going to be diving into all the plot points and characters, giving you my recap and explaining this episode. There will be spoilers for episode 6, so if you have not seen it, I'd advise to watch the episode, then return for my video analysis. Before I get into it, if you want to see any of my other episode reviews for Westworld Season 3, along with trailer breakdowns and topical videos for the rest of this season, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoy this video, remember to give it a like rating. Without further ado, let's get into Westworld Season 3 Episode 6, entitled Decoherence. We begin this episode with Maeve, who is now inside Serac's simulation of the Valley Beyond. After being shown memories with her daughter, Serac says that he can give her what she truly wants in being reunited with her. He explains that memory is flawless for the hosts, and that he can retrieve any person from her mind and recreate them of her choosing. He essentially tries to give her a reason to go after Dolores, but she says that it's not what she needs. Maeve reiterates, saying that she needs help and that it's her friends that she wants brought back to life. Serac agrees to this, but with a final warning. He says if you fail again, your future won't be in such pleasant surroundings. At this point, Maeve is then transported back into the Warworld simulation, where we found her in episode 2 of this season. She immediately takes out the Nazis who surround her and finds her old friend Lee Sizemore still hovering around the simulation. He's been living here ever since Maeve escaped and has even programmed all the different characters so that they won't see him. Maeve explains that her body is in the process of being reprinted, and then she realises her core drive and the simulation have been moved home to the Delos headquarters. As Serac's men work to bring Maeve's companions back to life, she finds Hector inside the simulation, but can also see Hector's true pearl outside in the real world. She uses her robot powers to then download Hector's true self, and this fantastic duo are once again reunited. Maeve, Hector and Sizemore all head downstairs to confront a Dolores host. This is the pearl that was inside Martin Connell's body, which Serac had recovered. Maeve sets about interrogating Dolores to gain an advantage on her in the real world, but also seems interested in having a genuine debate over the future of their species. This is needed because it really separates their perspectives. Dolores argues that Serac is destroying as many hosts as he can, and notes that while Maeve judges her violence, Maeve has sacrificed the lives of her friends and loved ones for the prospect of reuniting with her daughter. Dolores says, "You want me to be a saint, but you're no saint. You're not a villain either, and neither am I. We're survivors." This is exactly the point I was getting at leading into this episode in my previous videos. We're not seeing heroes and villains, we are seeing grey characters that each have varying perspectives while challenging their own inner drives. This has been one of the more fascinating aspects of this season so far, as it continues what was set up in season 2, the idea of challenging individual choices. However, at the end of this scene we find that there's no changing each other's mind. Maeve ends up hacking into cameras at the facility, and she watches as Dolores in the real world destroys Hector's pearl right in front of her own eyes. He's now gone for good, and this has definitely upset Maeve. The last we see of Maeve in this episode, her body has now been rebuilt. She looks on at another body being created, which is surrounded by the many different host capsules. My current prediction is that these hosts could be Clementine or Armistice. Although Hale crushed Hector's pearl, it still leaves 2 additional hosts that Serac smuggled out of the park. I suppose we'll find out next week. Moving on to William, or the Man in Black. Obviously, the last time we saw him, he was placed in a mental institution in the real world by Dolores, and now we see his continuing troubles in group therapy. He's causing his fellow patients to break down by explaining that he thinks that God doesn't exist in the most cynical way possible. To William, chaos is the only thing that he believes in now. You can say he's prepared for this because the outside world is turning into chaos at this very moment. In the middle of his one-on-one therapy session, he's prescribed AR therapy, a process that helps your brain heal, not by running from itself, but by leaning in. During this moment, his therapist receives calls from her husband. As we know, Dolores has given everyone access to Rehoboam's files, and for William's therapist, that means the end of her marriage and relationship with her children. She is devastated to see her life play out in front of her, devastated enough to not really pay attention as William admits he accidentally killed his daughter in the park. During the next scene, William also watches her commit suicide as he's being dragged into his session. He is then placed in a white room and given one of those mouth implants we saw Caleb have earlier this season. His blood also gets tested, but as the technician walks away from the screen, they miss what the audience sees. It shows that there's an unknown protein detected with a warning labelled "Synthetic Markers Found." The screen then flickers and it says "Tracing Data Transmission, Recipient Server Detected," with the location of Sonora, Mexico. So this could be whatever Dolores did to him with that finger spike a few episodes ago, either making it easier for her to track him, or even the beginning process of him becoming a host. Either way, it looks like his data is being transferred to a hideout in Mexico, which looks to be where Dolores is heading to. Moving on, as William is locked into a chair and given goggles for his AR therapy, we immediately experience a young version of him dealing with a seemingly abusive father. The memory fades as William resists the therapy and 2 technicians note that William's implant isn't working. Perhaps he is a host or maybe something else, but we can't quite put our finger on it. And talking of fingers, he bites off one of the techs trying to sedate him. But they eventually succeed and we see William fall into a deep sleep. When we return to his character, he's led by Major Craddock from Season 2 into a group therapy. As he walks into the session, he is confronted by numerous past iterations of himself. Sitting around the circle is Kid William, Young Professional William, Black Hat William, Philanthropist William, and also James Delos serving as a group moderator. What follows is a great deep dive into William's psychological state, as his different personas argue with one another about William's true nature. He defends himself by saying he did good things outside the park, and inside he only killed the hosts. Young Professional William admits he fell in love with a host, but the host was designed to make him fall in love with her. William claims that he was never violent as a child and that he had nothing as a kid, all leading to him becoming a wealthy man. But a key moment occurs during a flashback to his childhood. Yes, his father was criticising him, but he wasn't abusing him. He was shouting at young William because he broke another boy's arm after he was bullied. This leads to James Delos eventually pushing William on the notion of choice versus a set destination, and William brilliantly replies, "If you can't tell, does it matter?" which is obviously a great reference to his introduction to Westworld by Angela. Preceding this, he brutally beats the other William iterations to death. After he beats the final William, he says, "It doesn't matter what I've been. Good or bad, everything we've done has led to this, and I finally understand my purpose. I'm the good guy." We then end on him being woken up. He's still in the chair, still wearing the goggles, but a voice says it looks like he's been here for a while. He looks up, seeing Bernard and Stubbs, who state that the doctors must have forgotten about him in all the chaos. Bernard reaches out to help William, as it appears these three characters will be going on a new path together. And we finally come to Dolores. We get a genuine emotional conversation with her ex Jake, in which she admits she's feeling scared for what's to come. While the Dolores Pearl inside Charlotte Hale is a copy of Dolores, she's been having problems with the human code of Hale, which is giving her different emotional drives. She seems to care about her family, as Jake says that he didn't bother reading his Rehoboam profile, saying it's up to them to decide what happens in their future, not a machine. After brief intercutting between scenes, Hale heads to Delos to complete her plan of fending off Serac's hostile takeover. However, Serac is ahead of her and murders a fellow board member who's crucial to her vote in broad daylight. Serac has now ensured his takeover of Delos, and he's on his way to meet Charlotte inside. Dolores makes a troubled call to Dolores to break the news, and Dolores tasks her with sneaking the host making data out of Delos before Serac destroys it. Hale says that Serac will come after her family, and Dolores replies they're not your family. Indeed, Dolores explains why she didn't remove emotions from her code, saying, "We considered it, but if we changed ourselves just to survive, would it even matter if we did?" Hale finally says that she's already changed and that she can feel a growing distance between her and Dolores. We next see Serac arrive at Delos, ordering the entire facility to be locked down. The logos all change from Delos to Insight, as he asks for 3 assets to be copied over from the park via satellite. But once that's done, he wants his men to destroy everything. Every host and piece of data left in Westworld. He says the only thing he wants is the encryption key buried inside the head of Dolores. But Serac also knows that Dolores has made copies of herself and tasks a mole hunt inside Delos. With this, Hale sneaks downstairs and copies over the Westworld data herself to an external hard drive. But while snooping around, she discovers that Serac is in the process of printing 4 new hosts, including Maeve and the corrupted drive that was inside Connell's, which we mentioned earlier. At this point, Serac eventually calls a board meeting to exploit Hale because he knows that she is the copy of Dolores. He says that the real Charlotte Hale would never have taken the time to check on her son. But then Hale also knew that this would happen and releases a gas that takes out everyone in the room. Everyone except Serac is another hologram projecting from elsewhere in the building. Hale claims she's already smuggled out the data, but we see that back in Westworld, Serac has already been destroying all the remaining hosts. If there's any hope for the future of their kind, it's only by the form of data. We then lead into a action-heavy sequence which follows Hale's decision to crush Hector's Pearl, while Maeve watches from inside the simulation. But Hale retrieves the corrupted Dolores Pearl and makes her way out of Delos with the help of the riot control machine we saw a few episodes ago. The final scene shows Hale making it home and insisting Jake and her son get into the car, promising she's going to take them somewhere they can't be hurt. But of course, Serac was a step ahead of her. The car explodes in a fury of flames as Serac's henchman watches from aside and eventually leaves. Dolores crawls out from the wreckage, burned and in a state of sorrow, not because of her physical pain, but because of her emotional pain. So overall, Decoherence solidified the different character perspectives. It further gives weight to the idea of all of these characters not aligning with one another. There are no good or bad characters, but rather ones which are in the middle, all going through different story paths and complex motives. What's interesting about the title of this episode is what causes the term decoherence. In particular, it occurs when wave functions of a system become entangled with each other. And if anything, what Charlotte Hale is going through very much relates to what we have seen. Hale's human code is in the copy of Dolores, and it has aligned her with the emotional connection to her family. When she witnesses them being blown up at the end of the episode, her code must be more conflicted than ever. On the one hand, she wants to help Dolores take down Serac, but on the other, the death of innocent civilians that she has gained a connection to could become too much for her. All of these complications are ones which all the main characters of this episode are going through in different ways, and I wouldn't be surprised if Caleb, who looks to be the focus of next week's episode, is also challenged with these different perspectives. I can't wait to see where this goes and mainly what path they choose for characters like Charlotte Hale and Caleb as we reach the end of the season. I'm giving Westworld Season 3 Episode 6 a rating of 5 stars. I think ultimately this episode did a great job of bringing the attention to the emotional core of the characters addressed. As Season 2 proposed the idea of choice, Season 3 is testing these choices in ways that make it extremely difficult to align with a particular side or viewpoint. We'll have to see how this season ends, but Decoherence continues a great run of episodes that delve into the fragmented nature of humans and their reflections to the hosts. The magnified lens has been pulled back to broaden the scale and depth of the world, and it can only continue to expand. Let me know down below what you thought of episode 6, and tell me if you picked out anything that I didn't or any predictions you have going forward. I'm very interested to hear all your reactions. For reviews and recaps of all the remaining episodes of Westworld Season 3, along with topical videos surrounding this season, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a like rating. I will be covering the last 2 episodes of Season 3, along with a trailer breakdown for Episode 7 in the next few days, so look out for that. But anyway, let me know what you thought of the latest episode down below in the comment section. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.